right, Jonathan, good to have you here.
Hello.
So I do have a little bit of an intro to read before we get kicking off here. That way people know who you are. And I wrote here, in this episode of BIkepack Adventures podcast, I have the chance to connect with Jonathan B. Roy in person at Bécik in Gatineau, Quebec. In 2015, Jonathan left on a one-year tour with the intention of cycling from England to Vietnam, doing what so many of us only wish we could do, going on an extended bike tour where we'd learn about different cultures, food, people, and places we visit. Jonathan did this and more, cycling 40,000 kilometers across 40 countries in 4 years. Jonathan, welcome to the BIkepack Adventures podcast.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So I'm glad we're done, and have a good day. No, tell us about yourself. Give us a little bit of background.
I was never an athlete. I'm still not an athlete. I'm even now I cycle with people, and I'm in the 10% last. Even when and now they assume that I would be quick.
40 countries.
Yeah, I know, but extremely slow, like 15 kilometers an hour. I think it started at end of the 90s. We were doing little trips with my dad and my brother, and it was the second year of Train du Nord and around the Lac Saint-Jean. We would do this in 3 days, 4 days, with huge panniers just at the back. And then later, I always liked cycling, but I started to work in a bike shop, then started mountain biking, then just going in a city or point A to point B. But my real first bike trip was that around the world bike trip. So I didn't know if it would last more than 2 weeks, actually.
Okay. And I'm going to go down a limb here, but you're from Quebec.
I'm from Ontario.
Okay, he's from Ontario.
Yeah,
you're actually from Ontario?
Yeah.
Well, look at that.
Yeah. But I for a long time I thought I would not need to learn English. Actually, I think my English I learned more. Well, I would say I think it's really good. I know I have an accent, but when you travel, thank you. But when you travel, you realize that everyone in the world has an accent, so it doesn't matter.
Well, my accent in French is so bad. When I go to France, they're like, tu es Québécois. When I come to Canada, they're like, where are you from? So.
They actually around the world, they never know I'm French because it doesn't sound like French France. They would say, are you from South America? Or even like some people would say, I'm from Israel. Or even once I paid the local price in Azerbaijan.
That never happens.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
That's my background. I paid local price in Azerbaijan. It's in L'Orignal, Eastern Ontario.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My parents live in Alfred, so like literally down the road.
Maybe I know them.
They just moved there.
And so L'Orignal and. In high school in Quebec, but it's almost the same distance because it's so close. And then university in Ottawa, and then university in Montreal, and then back in L'Orignal, and then around the world.
Okay. And so bike touring, you said you grew up kind of adventurous family, right? You guys are doing
no, it's not adventurous if you do 3 days, and it was like once in a year thing. And I again, even in my family, I'm the least athletic. So my brother and I would be pretty much the same level, but he's 4 years younger, so that's not so good for me. And really, my main engine, I guess, or fuel, it's my curiosity. And I started to travel fairly late. I think I was 24, finished law school or actually bar school, and not bar like Tom Cruise and Cruising Bar.
Way more fun.
So in between the internship and the school, or vice versa, you have 1 month that you cannot do anything, cannot work before you know that you passed the exam. So one friend said, "Do you want to travel in that time?" And I said yes, and it was basically the first time I would travel with my backpack. And then it continued, and more I wanted to go deeper and meet every once per year I would travel, but I wanted to meet the real people, like not that they have nothing to sell. And I thought then the bicycle would be the right way to do it, but I didn't know anybody who did.
So what year was this roughly?
So I was traveling between 2013, 2014, and I decided in 2015 to leave. I actually left in 2016, but I prepared it for 1 year because I didn't know anything about equipment, itinerary, visa. And like you said, I said to everyone, I think it will be 1 year. And I left from England just because I knew some people
You're
there.
getting way ahead of my questions. But go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, stop me. Go. We can go somewhere else. I think it's more interesting than the threads now.
Yeah.
And
I know. It sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, well, you did it by a fat bike. It's more interesting. But so I left from there because I thought, since it's my first trip, they have cycling paths. They have kind of English and French, similar language. They have regular grocery stores. I would not have been able to leave from the other way around, like leave from China, for example. And then week by week, month by month, it became harder, but I became better at it. So it was always the same level.
Cool. Let me go to the questions at the end of the interview. So let's jump way back.
Okay.
When you decided to do this tour, it was around 2014 where you started to plan it and you thought, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, to think about it. Yeah. Okay. But so actually...
So no bike, no gear.
No,
what was your process? So, for anybody who's like maybe thinking of doing a big tour and thinking, man, how do I approach all this?
Yeah, okay. So basically for me, it was three things. The first one I talked about, it was to meet ordinary people around the world, not just here. And the second thing was to take my time. Like, I think you could travel by bike for one weekend and have that feeling, but to really accept every invitation and change your itinerary on the go, then you need at least a month. But then if you take a year, now you really have the time. And the third thing is, back in 2012, my mom had cancer and she died, and she had a dream of visiting Italy, which is not so difficult to do, but like so many people, she would just push it back every year for other reasons, more concrete things. And in the end, she never had the time to do it. So for me, I had this in the back of my mind, but it was like the push, the maybe that I needed to say, well, I'm going to do it now and not wait once I'm retired in 30, 40 years later.
Yeah.
Itinerary or equipment?
Do it. Let's talk about it.
So I planned for 1 year, and some people are planning more than that. I'm a big planner. I like when I knew exactly, like, I need this derailleur and this thing. And everything needs to be perfect. But what I'm saying now actually is that you can do it with anything. And where I saw that the most, maybe we can situate or locate it on the map, but I did England to Malaysia. I stopped in Malaysia. Then I wrote my first book there. Then I continued to Tokyo through China, Korea. And then I did 2 years in South America. And in South America, starting from Ushuaia in the south. And in South America, I met South Americans, of course, but traveling by bike, who had nothing. Like they didn't have any panniers. They just had kind of a petrol can rigged to their bicycle. And they look at my bike, which at the time I thought, oh man, my bike is so old. It doesn't look good anymore. It's so, technology is bad and everything is faded. And they looked at it and they're like, man, you must be a millionaire in your country to have this equipment. So everything is relative. And they were doing the exact same kilometers or mileages I was doing, probably even more. So I planned for 1 year, but really I could have just planned for 2 weeks. Really, we're planning for our own sake more than because it's actually necessary.
So as a millionaire bike tour, what kind of bike did you buy?
It changed so much in the last year. Like some podcasts even rebranded themselves from tour to
Windmill,
bike
yeah,
pack.
yeah.
Yeah. So I plan for to be on the bike tour podcast, and then I thought, oh man, I need panniers and I need a surly because that's what you need. And I had a surly disc trucker, 26-inch wheel.
Indestructible.
Yeah. Schwalbe marathon, like only 5 kilos per tire. Biggest tube that you can get. Like everything was so heavy, and people and everything you read is, oh, but what if your tire breaks in Uzbekistan? Like you need to change it. And I've been to Uzbekistan, like they have 26-inch tires. Like you don't want to use that on your bike because you're gonna go 20 more kilometers, and again it will break.
Especially if you have a heavy bike.
Yeah. With everything, it's like 50 kilos. And I had not at the beginning, but a year later, I had a drone. All the way, I had a tripod, a camera, 3 lenses, something like 2 or 3 microphones, a small action, kind of a GoPro, then the camera, a laptop. I had so much gear for electronic, but for me, it was important.
So how much time in a day would you spend stop on the side of the road doing pictures and video? Like, how do you balance that? Since we're kind of everywhere, I'll just ask you random questions. I feel like it.
My longest day was 165 kilometers, which is not that much compared to a lot of your guests, but for me, it was the longest. And my shortest was something like 800 meters. So it would depend.
A lot of picture stops.
Well, yeah, because I want stories. I don't want more kilometers or more countries.
Sure.
I want to meet people. That was the goal from day one. And sometimes I would be too tired to speak with people, and I had to remind myself, no, the reason why you're doing it is not to get to the next capital. It's to have enough stories at some point to write a book. It was not at the beginning. It was not in my mind, but at some point it was the goal. So how much time? Like I would spend 30 minutes to 2 hours per day just writing notes.
Okay.
And then every article I would write on the blog would be about 3 hours on top of that. And I would write maybe 3 articles per week. And then that's not including the just transferring the photos and choosing which ones to keep. It's like half and half, I'd say. That from half the work is pedaling, and the other half is notes and talking and trying to find stories.
Yeah, tell me a story.
You want one story? I can tell you the story of that 800 meters day. It was it was in Argentina. It was really hard at the time. One day that children threw rocks at my tent and it made a hole, and my mattress was broken, and it was super dry. I was having problems to breathe, and I would just continue no side of the road. I was basically on a highway, but literally on a highway. And then one day I did maybe 2 blocks. I was at the center on the big center of the city, and a guy arrived. He was with one of his sons. I learned that he tells me he has 7 children, and he's a pastor for a Protestant church in town, which is called Rio Cuarto in Argentina. And so he said, "Do you want to come to my home?" And I'm like, "Sorry, I have 800 meters done so far. I cannot." And then I leave. And 100 meter later, I turn around and I see him again, and I say, "Oh, I changed my mind," because I thought nobody's waiting for me anywhere else, so I might as well go. So everybody is at home because it's the week off for vacations, holidays, and then I meet everybody. We have a dinner there or a lunch, and then we go to a radio station because he says, I'm the owner of a radio. It's called Radio Gospel, which is like an extension of his pastor work. And I thought it was just to visit. And on the way, I talk and like, why is Rio Cuarto? And I say the joke, do you have Rio Tercero and Rio Quinto? Because it means fourth river, and then you have like third river and fifth river around. And he says, yeah, but they're not as good. Like they're tiny, and really the nicest city is this one. So we arrived to the radio, and then the host, they tried to ask me some questions. And then now I'm in the studio, and I asked, oh, I'm sorry, my Spanish is not that great at the moment. It was not so long in Argentina. And they're like, no, it's fine. We understand everything. So now I do an interview on the radio, and they ask me for like 20 minutes live. So what do you like about Rio Cuarto, which I've known for 2 hours? And so I tell them, oh, I mean, you have everything here. You have a river, which, yeah, it's in the name. You have trees. I'm just naming what I've seen.
Whatever nouns you know.
No, but what I've seen in the 2 kilometers that we walked from his home to the radio station. So you have that bridge, which is like, I mean, I've seen bridges, but this one is just great. And I'm trying to direct the conversation, and like I'm doing right now.
Fantastic job, by the way.
Because I might not understand their questions, so I'm just trying to talk with the words that I know, and I'm saying and for sure, like Rio Cuarto is better than those shitty guys in Rio Tercero, and they always are laughing, and they're like, oh yeah, and Rio Tercero, they're so shit. And so it was a good interview. And that day was...
That was your only way to redeem. You're like, forget those Rio Cinco.
Yeah. But that day, I saw 800 meters. It was way better than my 165 later on, or before actually in China, where I didn't speak to anyone, didn't take any photos, didn't have any good story to tell.
I think you kind of have to pick what you want. You know, are you going to go for just the human connections at no set pace, or if you're out to make distance, then you're sacrificing that. You know, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. I cycle with other guys, not so much, but one German, one Italian in South America, and they told me, "Thank you, because you're so slow." And I said, "You're welcome." No, but because they told me before. They would travel on their own, and then we met by coincidence, and together I was forcing them to be slower, because I said, I take photos, and I'm not as fit as you guys, so they would slow down, and they said we experienced a different way of traveling. Like we would talk more because you go talk to people, and then when you're not in a rush, people come and talk to you also. So we receive more invitations. We eat more stuff. We take better photos.
What has been the most inviting country, like where people just more often than not are inviting you?
The more the country is Christian, sorry, but the less invitations you get, and then reverse. The more it's Muslim, but I have many in mind, but the Muslim, like Central Asia, for example, so like Tajikistan, but also Turkey, Azerbaijan. Yeah, I've never been to Iran, but I've heard the same thing there. But they have that the culture and the religion is like together, and they think the trick when you want to stop somewhere is not to hide. If there's nobody, then you can hide for a while camping. But if I see someone, I'll go and speak to them and say, can I camp there? And then 50% they'll say, yeah, no problem. And then 50% they say, no, come inside. But over that, in Muslim countries, they think that you're like sent from God or from Allah. And they say, you choose me. You didn't choose my neighbor. Yeah. You could have been the next village or my neighbor or anywhere else. So it's kind of, let me prove to my God that I'm a good person. So it's insane the way they receive people.
Sometimes too, I mean, because my wife is Persian, so they have this cultural thing they call it tarof. So they offer.
Oh yeah.
Even though they know the person will probably say no, they'll offer again 2 or 3 times, which is always a bad idea with like North America. It's like,
Yeah.
for first time, you're like, no. They're like, no, seriously, how? Okay,
Yeah,
I will have your food.
I heard that about Iran, but I have not heard that about other
Yeah, I
countries
don't
like
know if it's-
Uzbekistan.
I think,
or
like-
I think it's something. Maybe they have it in other countries than Iran, but specifically in there. But I mean, they were offering me their daughter for like 4 or 5 times, and I kept saying no. So
Good daughter. That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
like for 13, 14,
I don't know what to
15 years
say
old.
now.
Yeah. It was not part of your question.
It wasn't one of my questions. No, definitely not. You said there were some things that surprised you in Europe. What were some of those things? I think I saw like some crazy pictures of canals going over canals and weird ass stop signs or signs in general.
Well, the only place in the world that I spent one day without eating was in France.
Why?
Because everything is closed on Sunday, and that's good that I started there.
It's like old school Canada.
Yeah. But in the village, like literally, and I thought, okay, yeah, everything's closed, but surely there's one thing open, but nothing is open. And I was not carrying so much food, but then I learned, like every day I would learn more. It was at the beginning of the trip. And then I was in one village and I asked one guy in French, I'm sorry, I know it's Sunday and everything's closed, but maybe there's a restaurant or there's a bigger grocery store or something. And he replies in English, well, sorry, Sunday's closed. Yeah, I said, yeah, I just said that. But maybe another place that would not be closed. And he said, what can I tell you? And I'm like, why are you speaking in English? And I was speaking French to him. But still, I don't know. Maybe he thought I was from
Ontario,
from L'Oreal. Yeah. I didn't even remember the canal thing. That's a cool. Yeah, thank you for that.
It was an interesting picture. I actually looked at it for a while. I was like, what?
I did not remember that. But sometimes some people would read my books or my blog, they would remind me things. It's a big problem in someone's life to remember everything that I've seen. Yeah, awesome. I slept in Austria. In I'm not sure if it's a kid's shack, and it's not a shack. It's like up in a tree house. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a tree house for kids or for hunters, but it was big and comfortable because people were not welcoming.
No.
So the reverse question of the one you said before, the least welcoming countries are, I think, the ones with the Germanophone, the one where Germanic, yeah.
Languages?
But yes, exactly. Or immigration, because some places in Chile they had immigration from Germany, and you can feel a bit the same. They're more cold.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be in your, I think it's part that they don't want to be in your bubble. They respect that. And I've seen that also a bit in Japan. Like it's not welcoming, but it's not like Brazil.
In Japan, a large part of it is the fear of sounding wrong.
Oh yeah. There's also that for sure.
Yeah.
Because perfection is number one value.
Yeah.
And then they would not accept my level of English there.
They wouldn't accept their own level.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the East-West divide with Europe? Like, how did you feel? Like you said, starting in England made sense because it's easy, it's comfortable. It kind of ticks all those boxes of what you might want at the start of a tour, especially if it's your first big world tour. But then you're slowly making your way east and you're getting towards places like Bulgaria and Croatia and all these.
Yeah, you named the one country I saw the difference. So I after Austria, I went to Slovenia. Slovenia is still Western Europe.
Okay.
And then after that, I went to Croatia. But then the northeast of Croatia, which is not the coast that all the tourists go. And there, I wrote an article saying like it's still Europe, but it doesn't feel like Europe. Like you're starting to go back in time. I was in a bus stop, and a child, he was like 12 years old, and he was just sniffing petrol gas, and it's like, okay, I don't feel like I'm in Switzerland anymore. But that was kind of short, and then I crossed Bosnia, Herzegovina, and then right at I didn't know anything apart from, okay, there was a war there, and then with the ex-Yugoslavia thing, but it's the most complicated country ever, because I was explained that it's a federation of two countries. One is the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is also the name of the country.
Okay.
And then the other one is the Republika Srpska.
Yeah, the Serbians.
Yeah, and that's the Serbian part. But now the country, and it was a constitution that was done super quickly to end the war in the 90s. In the country, they alternate between three prime minister or president, I'm not sure, but one is Croatian culturally,
Sure,
and the other one is Bosniak. So,
okay.
I think you can say that in English. Bosnian is the country, and Bosniak is
Bosniak,
culturally. And then the other one is Serbian.
Right.
And they alternate 8 months to 8 months. And so I asked one
every 8 months.
Yeah. They're all there at the same time, and they change role every 8 months.
At least Malaysia, it's like 13 kings, but it's every 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And Malaysia, they all live together, and they don't shoot. But even today, like I was in the Republika Srpska in the north, and I say, how are you living, blah, blah, whatever, in Bosnia? And they said, we're not in Bosnia, man. We're in Republika Srpska. And, okay, because sorry guys, I just passed the border. So I'm pretty sure I'm in Bosnia, but then I learned that it's such the history is still really, really vivid there.
And probably if you go to one of their soccer games or football games, that's like police down the aisles separating everybody, I assume.
I don't know. Probably. I mean, there's still bullet holes in the city, in Sarajevo. And a guy, another, I don't know if he was a pastor, kind of priest, but he was Serbian, and he told me, I still hate everybody else that is not, I still hate the Bosniak. It was their fault. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was not their fault. Like you circled the city and you shot on them for 4 years. So I don't think it was their fault. But
I don't know.
After it was
welcome to politics with BIkepack Adventures.
But when you cycle super slowly,
you're always involved. Yeah.
And I think that the second, so I wrote 2 books on this trip, and the first one, I think it's more anecdotes, like people would tell me things, and also I had 27 countries in the first book, and the second one I had 13 because the countries are larger. So I can dig deeper in. Not really politics, because I want the books to grow old. They still be relevant, but I can go more into history and culture. But those would be the kind of things that I explain in the books.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
And you said Bulgaria. I think Bulgaria was in that list too. Of like,
well, Bulgaria is a bit funny because they say the sign to say yes and no are reversed, and everyone looks like a wrestler.
Like no necks.
But they're sometimes in Japan they will go to Bulgaria to recruit Bulgarian wrestlers, and they say if you learn a few words in Japanese, you can become a massive star there for sumo wrestling. Yeah. Apart from that, Bulgaria was nice. Plovdiv, super old city. I think it's the oldest city in continuously inhabited.
Really?
Yeah. It's something like 4,000 years old, still the same place.
Wow. Okay. Dogs? Any issues? Because I think, to me, I think when I hear bike touring, it's always like Bulgaria, maybe.
I've heard
Albania, Bulgaria is where it really starts to become a problem.
Not so much. I heard Romania, but I've never been. But really, at the beginning, I was cycling really quick, and I would accelerate and go faster. But then I learned that if you have a rock in your handlebar bag and you throw it just in front of the dog, then it will stop. And then one day I didn't even have a rock, and I just did the trick of moving my arm, and it still stopped.
Oh.
So that's what I do. I don't even change my
Pretend to throw
pace.
rocks.
Yeah. And normally, if they shout, if they bark a lot, they're used to being thrown rocks at it, and then so they know that gesture, it means stop. What I find funny or interesting is that the stray dogs, or even all the dogs, they reflect the nation's attitude. And I've seen it really between Chile and Argentina, where Chile, I told you, they're more reserved, they're a bit more cold in general. And the stray dogs, they are so fat and they're so nice. They come on your lap, and you have no choice but to give them a little bit of food. And they even have in their constitution, one of their law actually, they have like a personal dog, stray dog, and then in the middle you have something like a community dog.
Okay.
In Chile. Yeah, and this dog, it's like there's no one owner, but it's part of the village, and so it's owned by everyone at the same time. They have that a lot. And in Argentina, so you cross the border, and then they bark all night. You cannot sleep. Every village, the whole night, completely different.
How did you like Chile? Did you go to the capital?
It was cold.
Yeah.
It was Chile.
Oh, I meant the food, but okay.
Yeah. No. I didn't go in the northern part, so I cycled from the south and from Ushuaia, and then all the bit with the glaciers. Most beautiful landscape in the world, or easily top 3. I like the mountains, but there you got the mountains, fjords, glaciers. Every single day you can have a bath in the river coming down from it's super cold. It's colder in the summer than in the winter.
Because the temperature difference, maybe?
No, because it's in the winter it's like a regular stream, and in the summer it's just ice melting from the glaciers, so it's actually colder in the summer. But it's worth it because you feel refreshed. And nobody lives there. The Carretera Austral, amazing roads at 1,200 kilometers or something. Half of it is still not paved. And it's the 3rd or 4th least dense area in the world, with Svalbard, Greenland, and Falklands Island. So,
I have a student from Chile, and I said, "Oh, Chile must be amazing." She goes, "It's a terrible place." And I said, "Really?" She's like, "It's so dangerous." And I said, "But..." She was talking about the capital where she grew up. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, probably it's dangerous if you're local."
I don't think it's dangerous anymore, but it's really, it's.
She just left this year, so.
Well, I guess it depends from which part I went, but it used to be way more dangerous. So I stayed 5 weeks with a couple friends. They were a couple.
Okay.
And I met them in Vietnam 2 years earlier. And they told me, if you cycle to Chile one day, you're welcome. So 2 years later, I wrote to them, "Hey guys, we haven't spoken 2 years. I'm now in Chile, and then can I still visit you?" And they said, yeah. So I spent 5 weeks in their apartment. But then it was like organic. Okay? Every day I'd be like, I need to go. And you have your own bathroom, you have your own bedroom, and they have this culture of like, do your own thing. They don't need to take care of me. So it was all fine. But then after 3 weeks, I see a photo of the guy who's called Francisco, and then a photo of him in shirtless, and he has a major scar across his chest. And I said, "What's that, man?" And then he lifts his shirt and he said, "You mean this?" "Oh yeah, I was I got a knife. How do you say that?
Stabbed?
Yeah, I got stabbed in the heart when I was 16 years old. So that's what I mean when I say it used to be more dangerous than that. But it was, I don't know, coincidence or like bad luck, because it's a guy who was he was in a park cycling to go to his grandmother's birthday, and the guy wanted drugs or was under the influence, and he said, "Give me your bike," and then Francisco gave his bike on the spot, but then for the guy like didn't know what was happening, so he still stabbed him, and then Francisco, I don't know how he did that, but he managed to. He was just the blood was coming out of his body, but he went on the street. One woman arrived and she was shouting, "Where?" Because since Pinochet, who was a dictator in the 70s and in the 80s, everything now is private. So she was shouting, "Where is your hospital?" Because if you go to the wrong hospital, and according to your insurance also, nothing will be covered. So you want to go to the best hospital that is covered under your insurance. And then he said, "Oh, whatever, this one."
Gurgled out a name.
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
hospital.
And then he just lost consciousness, and I think he was like that for a few days. And when he woke up, he said to his dad, who he saw his dad next to him, and he said something like, "Did I fuck up?" Or he looked at him with tubes, everything all over the body, and he said, "Oh, I fucked up." And his dad started to cry, because just with this sentence, he knew that his son could understand the gravity of things. So it meant that his brain was still functioning.
Okay. Yeah. That's deep. Everybody should go visit Chile.
But now I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's really nice. But I mean,
I'm sure too. It's just like this little girl. Her parents had these memories of bad Chile.
For sure, yeah. And even in the last few years, there was a lot of manifestation in the streets and in Santiago, because they wanted to have a new constitution and change a lot of things. It was still the constitution from Pinochet time, but my friend, who I still talk to a lot, he said, I'm really glad I'm living here through a historic time for Chile. So yeah, I mean, he has a pretty good life, but it's true that Chile is really, but like a lot of countries in South America and all over the world, but it's really unequal.
Right.
But it's still one of the richest on the continent.
Yeah. You went to Brazil. I mean, and the reason I bring this up is in case you forgot, because you did mention you forget things. But a lot of people tend to kind of stick to the West Coast of South America. And you made the effort to go over there. Like, what prompted it? What was your route? How did you decide this? And how was it? And Uruguay as well, I guess.
And Paraguay. Yeah. I think I just wanted to not do the Ushuaia, Alaska route, which is, and when you say like it's common, it's not common, but it is kind of common when you only talk to long-term cyclists. There's I think like for example, if you go north in Argentina, then you go to Uyuni in Bolivia, and that's also quite common even for backpackers. So I was looking at the map and I thought, oh, might as well go completely east, because the goal is not to come back home, it's just to have good stories and learn about culture. And I think I don't remember at which point I got an invitation from a mountain bike club in Uruguay.
Cool.
But I mean, mountain bike.
They're rolled up with your Surly, and you're like, "Let's do this."
Well, yeah, I'll tell you that. But the highest mountain is not even 300 meters. I think it's like it's like the rolling hills of Uruguay. You know? Yeah. But they ride. It's more like gravel bike actually now that we would call that, but they call it the mountain bike. Anyway, I spent 1 week with them after. So I crossed from Santiago. I came again over the Cordillera, the Andes. So I crossed the Andes 4 times. So that was the 4th time. Came back to Mendoza, crossed to Rio Cuarto at that point, to Buenos Aires, and then Uruguay. Spent 1 week there. And I didn't cycle with the Surly. They gave me an old hardtail Specialized.
Okay.
But with one suspension. But then I started, and after 50 meters, the oil was leaking from the brake at the back. And so I only had one brake at the front. And so I was glad that it was actually not the really steep in Uruguay, because it would have been more dangerous.
Yeah.
Nice guys. I spent again 1 week, and then I met there. I met the mayor of Montevideo, which is the capital, and he was running to be president. And I have a photo with him. He gave me a kiss, and I was sad that he didn't win. It was like 2%, and in the end, it was Lacachepou who won. He became the president of Uruguay. But so actually his name is you could write it La Calle, means the street. But in Uruguay, which leads me to another thing, but they have a big influence from Portuguese, their language. So there, if you have a J, a double L, or a Y, it's pronounced sh and not y, like the Spanish that we would learn. So every time I would cycle from one country to the other, and you think, oh, okay, it's still Spanish, but it's not Spanish. Like it changes. It changes all the time, and not just at the border, but progressively. And then I also had a friend in Uruguay, in another town that I met in Vietnam also. And he said, well, when you're in Uruguay, you can visit me. So I go there. But he was running to be an MP of some sort. So he used me to have a lot of interviews on Uruguay television.
Oh, interesting.
And then at that point, because I had my experience with the gospel radio, I was beginning to be better. And then he said, is it okay? Like a day or two before I arrived in a city which called Sarandi del Chi, but it's Yi, but it's pronounced Chi. And then he said, I organized a few interviews. Is it okay? I'm not kidding. We had 11 interviews on that day. And then all the community television and the radio, they were all calling. And he's like, okay, so now if you stay tomorrow, we can have 6 more. And it was just one after the other. And when so I did like the equivalent, it doesn't even work in English. It's like the Deux filles le matin, but like, it's 2 Uruguayan women in the morning. Okay, you can imagine the show. I did that. And then I cycled with another guy in the village, and then I did another community thing. It looked really, really like that, but it was on TV. And we did that for 28 minutes straight live on TV. And the guy was just like talking in Uruguayan. So I had to translate in my mind, okay, all the I have to change it. So my name, when I say my name is Jonathan in Uruguayan.
Jonathan?
Well, yeah, but it's me llamo Jonathan. But then it would become me llamo Jonathan. So it's so complex. You have to change every single word in your head to know what is the question. So again,
I don't know Spanish, so I'm going to keep living in ignorance because that's much easier.
But you don't need to learn another language, because like my ex-father-in-law, who was British and worked all over Europe, told me once, I never needed to learn another language because we won the war.
It's a well thought out point, but I do speak 3 languages. So I clearly failed.
What's the third one? Is it
Russian?
Russian.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you know the Atkuda.
Kudaci, Playdish.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know like 10 words in Russian.
Yeah.
That's enough to tell a story. I know Palatka.
Okay.
Which is a tent.
Yeah.
Samoliot.
Samoliot airplane.
Yes.
Are we testing? Okay, let's go. I didn't actually know Palatka because it's something I've never used.
Yeah, but that's one of the 10 words.
I knew everything I knew was around drinking and bar culture.
Yeah. That's also
very important.
Vodka is the same.
Yeah, I loved in Russian, and people won't be able to, you don't see.
Talk to everybody.
But if you just flicked your jugular, that meant I need another drink. You didn't have to say words. It's amazing. 2 fingers to the throat, man. I was up to here and I can't drink anymore, and they would just stop serving you. It's So cool.
When you do the jugular, it means I need one more.
More, yeah.
And
yeah.
if you do
like
that,
tap me, right? Like I need to.
okay.
Yeah.
And then if you choke yourself, it means I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah.
Huh.
There you go. Now you know Russian.
Have you been to Vietnam?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Huh? Have you drank with the people there all together with like their tiny beer shooters?
Yeah. And to some degrees, I mean, I don't know if it was Vietnam or some other country, but yeah.
And because
in Malaysia, the Chinese bars, they also like the mini glasses.
Yes, but I don't think it's like that in Malaysia. No? But in Vietnam, every time you cannot drink on your own. You have to take your shooter at the same time as everybody else.
And you drink the whole thing.
Yeah, and then so if you're faster, then everybody has to go faster because of you. And if you're slow, then you're slowing everybody down. Like they look at you like, go man, because we cannot have another one if you don't finish yours.
Okay, so yeah, Malaysia, they didn't have that thought process to it.
Yeah.
But like I lived in the Northeast in Kelantan and very, very Islamic state. So the only place to go drink was the Chinese karaoke bars. And that was it. Like the little glasses of beer that were like 3 ounces. And the waitress girls would just keep filling them up and trying to get you to drink more.
Kelantan, is that the one next to Thailand?
Kota Baro, yeah.
So I met a doctor who was operating on brain surgery over there in a hospital. But the only thing she would do is just drill holes in the skull all day long, every day, because people would just go on their motorcycle without a helmet, have an accident, and then their head would be full of blood. And so
I saw some wicked bad accidents in Malaysia because I used to drive 45 minutes to work each way from Kota Baru to Tanah Merah, which is on the way towards the Thai border. And over the 3 years, man, countless times I saw motorbikes on the side of the road, ambulances around. Quite often it was just a plastic bag laying on their face because they didn't have a black bag. They just put a grocery bag and just nasty. Anyways.
Yeah. What was the town that you were going to?
Tanah Merah.
And that you told me that it was a mistake. And you arrived there with your swimming suit and you were singing like, going to work in
Tanah Merah. Exactly.
Yeah, what a surprise.
So you stayed in Malaysia a while, right?
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year.
Yes.
You know, I was there at the same time in Kuala Lumpur.
Really?
Yeah,
in which you were living there?
I was living in when exactly were there? 2017, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was living in Cameron Towers in Petaling Jaya, just
that's the white part, huh? Is it? Or like
not really. No.
Petaling. Oh no, it's kind of south. It's like south of downtown.
Just literally the border of Kuala Lumpur was like half a kilometer.
Yeah, I was in.
So you know Bukit Gasing? That was a big climbing hill people would go to.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even remember the village. It's called Kampung Baru. I was living there.
You're living in Kampung Baru.
Yeah. And at my job,
the Chinese imprisonment camp during the Civil War there.
That's why I chose that place. Yeah, full of memories.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you do in Malaysia? What did you do in Malaysia for a year?
I was cycling. I had been cycling for 1 year, and at that point I thought I was more moving than traveling because I was too mentally tired, but by my own fault because I was never stopping really. I thought that traveling by bike meant you can never stop, like I did after. So I had that in mind, and then at the same time I received a job offer to work as a lawyer for a French firm or French company in Kuala Lumpur, but with offices in Bangkok and Singapore.
French friends?
Yeah.
They speak to you in English all the time?
It was in English, but also but it was like 80% in English. Contracts for employees there in Southeast Asia. And the guy, it was weird. The guy was following my blog, and he wrote to me like, "Do you want a job there?" And I had never been in Malaysia before. And then we talked. I was still in Laos, and then we talked, and I said, "Okay, so now I know what the job is. So I should convince you that I'm the right one for it." And he said, no, do you want it? Like, I need you. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then I looked at the map and I said, how many kilometers? I said, I can be there in 2 months. And he said, yeah, fine.
Awesome.
And then I continued by bike. I arrived there. I got the work visa when I arrived, found the apartment. And we said earlier, I think we talked about Malaysia, but it's a fascinating country. I think it's the most interesting country to live in Southeast Asia.
I lived there 7 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I was wrong. Kampong Baru is, I was thinking Kampong China. That was right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Kampong Baru is really, really Malay, actually. It's the only place, I guess it's still like that, but it's without super high rises in the town, the city. No, it's not expensive. 3 times cheaper than Singapore, but you can have a pretty good life there.
Yeah, I would say like I always compared Malaysia to Canada in the sense that 3 ringgits there was $1, right?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
But whatever you buy here for $1 would cost you 1 ringgit there. So you're costing a third the cost of living to what Canada was.
That
pretty
makes
close
sense.
to what Singapore was too. Yeah.
My apartment was fantastic. I had 2 parking lots for me, or parking spaces. Yeah. I only had my Surly.
and you didn't leave it outside anyway, so.
Yeah, well, I was leaving it there because we were possibly. Did you cycle? Were you cycling in Kuala Lumpur?
A lot, yeah, but mostly road biking.
Okay.
I had good road groups there. Yeah.
Were you looking at other cyclists and be like, we're in the same team, like we're risking our lives? Because nobody's cycling there.
Oh, but I didn't cycle day to day.
Okay.
Like I cycled on weekends with the groups, and I would throw my bike in the car to go to the start point. Because,
yeah.
You got to know where it's safe to ride. But the highways, you could ride on the expressway in Malaysia.
I know.
And they're super clean. They're super paved well. There's no potholes.
The police would, so when I arrived, and then after that, a year later when I left, police would just follow me on the highway and be like, yeah, man, good job. And then as soon as I entered Singapore, I did 200 meters, and then the police were like, "Meow, you cannot be on the highway." I'm like, I've been on the highways everywhere because it's when you have no other option.
Yeah, actually, Malaysia, I always say Malaysia's a great place to ride on the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not looking to engage in culture and see people in towns, but the shoulders, I mean, aside from sometimes like glass spill from accidents that doesn't get swept up,
blood,
the roads are quite good. They're easy. It's good, fun.
Good country, Malaysia.
So you're there a year, and then you took a cargo ship or something.
Yeah, so that I wrote my first book there. Okay. When I stopped in Malaysia, I said on my social media accounts I will stop, and then I received some offers from publishers in Canada saying, if you want to write a book, we'll publish it. But I'll say and then I wrote that there. And when writing the first book, I was sad because I thought this trip looks amazing, and then I remembered it's mine. I already did it, going from England to Malaysia, and that's the maximum I'll go in my life. That's the highlight. And then I thought at the same time, if I did the first half or one half of the world, then I could do the other half. And so I convinced myself to get back on the saddle. And then like you said, cycle to Singapore, and then you're in the end of the peninsula. So I didn't want to take a plane because everybody knows when you take a plane, you're a cheater.
For sure, yeah.
So the other option was to take a cargo ship,
or swim.
Yeah, yeah. But cargo ship, super interesting. It's extremely expensive. It's not. I was going to say it's not worth it. It is worth it, but for the experience, because taking a cruise ship is way cheaper than a cargo.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but then I took that between Singapore and Taiwan, and we were only 2 tourists, which is like a lot. Normally it's more like 0. My own cabin, and I could speak to the cooks. Really interesting also how they don't mix the people from different countries. So on my ship, it's mine. They were half from Ukraine and half from Romania.
Okay.
And all the officers on that ship were from Ukraine and basically all the same city. And the other guys working the deck, they were all from Romania. And also, it's really often that people would work on ship from the Philippines or India, but they don't mix those guys with the Eastern European because then it's too complicated for the cook to have to mix the different spices.
Yeah.
Like it would be,
everybody somewhat
would,
miserable, right?
Yeah, well, they would be happy for a week, and when you have a contract for 6 months, you'd be like, look, I love Indian food, but after 4 months, I needed something else, and then it would be the vice versa thing. Like I love potatoes, but
interesting. Do we want to open up for questions in case
sure.
everybody has questions that are kind of in their mind before they have to sit on the toilet? If anybody has questions, I can turn that microphone on. And,
I have a question.
Sure.
So you've been to a lot of countries and cycled in a lot of countries. You were talking about safety on the roads. Which countries do you think are the safest to cycle and where the cars respect cyclists? And which countries do you think are less safe for cyclists and people are more frustrated when they see you on the road?
I never met anyone who had his things stolen, and I think it's a big concern. Like, I have to lock everything all the time and bring everything. In the beginning in Europe, I was bringing everything inside all the time. And actually, I know one guy. So I never met him personally, but I know one guy who got. He was a Korean, and he was cycling Asia, Europe, and he put his bike on a grocery store, and when he went outside, everything was gone, and it was in Laval. So I think the answer to that is Canada is the most dangerous country.
I was asking more about like on the road, you know?
Yeah, I think it's never in a rural place. It can be dangerous, but then you have always kind of different other options. I remember Argentina was difficult because it's a big country and there's no shoulder. And so if you're either on the highway without a shoulder and it's super dry, so the vegetation is aggressive. So if you go on the shoulder with the shoulder, which is not a actual one, then you will have a flat in 2 seconds, really.
Like unpaved shoulder, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, it's not cacti, you can say cacti, yeah. It's like everything is point, yes, yeah, sure. But super hard. So it goes really deep into the tire. I had countless flats there. So it is dangerous because you're on the side with massive trucks because it's such a large country. But the most dangerous is always about 20 kilometers from a city. Inside a city, not that dangerous because it's slower. Rural, if you don't like it on the highway, you can go on agricultural roads. It's okay if it's not raining. But then 20 kilometers from a city, then you might not have a shoulder, not a sidewalk, but still really big trucks and fast. So my most dangerous place was just before Sao Paulo, largest city in the southern hemisphere, and a lot of mountains around also. So you have only one option to go in, and I had to stop in bus stops because I was too stressed out, and there's just not one other option. So I just needed to continue. And then I remember one bus was going right in front of me, stopping. So I was going around, but then another bus was coming. And then weirdly, Rio, the next city, probably one of the easiest one. I don't know why, but they have a super nice cycling path next to the beach that you can probably cycle for 40 kilometers coming in. There's just one place that it drops into the sea and it's kind of blocked, but then two guys said, yeah, it's okay. You just go under it and then you push the fence and then you can cross a tunnel and then you go on the side that the road is not down to the sea and you're okay. And then you cross a favela, and then you arrive in Rio.
And it was easy as that.
It was, yeah. Yeah, I feel your sarcasm, but it was not dangerous.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah.
didn't know where to go, but I felt there was no traffic. And the most dangerous is always traffic. Tokyo, super big city, like 40 million people, but it's, you live there also. You've been there?
No, I have a kid in Japan. I didn't live there though.
You have a kid in
I
Japan?
have a 10-year-old.
That sounds more interesting.
It's a long story.
Okay.
For beer.
Yeah, okay. So, but it's super easy to come in
Yeah.
because Tokyo is like all villages, different villages.
Mhm.
So when you come in, you have multiple options. It's like a big maze, but it's all right.
Mhm.
And I think the newer cities are harder. Buenos Aires was also difficult. I think South American cities are harder.
Yeah, and I heard something. I know you didn't go to Mexico City, right? I know
No.
somebody was telling me like to skip Mexico City, you start
Oh,
about
yeah.
100 kilometers outside the center, and you start the circle.
Yeah.
Because it's so big.
Istanbul is difficult also to come
Yeah,
in.
well, because of the water too, right?
Yes, again, so Sao Paulo is because of the mountains, and in Istanbul it's because you have only a few options to have to cross a bridge. And again, massive city, you have to enter by that bridge, and it's that's actually a good thing. But the traffic is so slow that it's not moving. So you go around the traffic in like the 8 lanes, and people can buy bottles of water on the highway.
Iran's like that too. Yeah, when they're traffic jams, kids come out and start selling stuff, selling socks, whatever. Yeah.
Useful things like socks,
usually whatever they can get to sell.
Yeah. The shoes.
So yeah, crossing Istanbul. Did you guys ride? You were with your brother, right?
Yeah. We rode from Sofia in Bulgaria to Istanbul together.
And
It was only 2 or 3 weeks.
Did you guys ride much in Istanbul, or you just kind of gave up after a while?
Well, no, we cycled to the old city, and then we walked around.
Okay.
And then one day after I left, the bomb exploded exactly or like a block from where I was.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
Very quickly, I want to know what's your pickup line. Is it just like, hey, can I pitch my tent there? But really, what I would like to know is how you get away from people that are too kind, right?
Too kind?
Well, I'm sure there was some times where they would not let you go, right? Like in the morning, you try to pack up and they want to serve you food and things like that. I'm pretty sure you have that.
Yeah, well, I have a good story on that. But the first thing is I developed the technique. At the beginning, I was always hiding in Europe, and at some point, I remember vividly one guy stopping in Croatia. I was leaving the capital or entering the capital. He was by car, and he said, I'm also a cyclist. Where are you going? Where do you camp, or where do you sleep?" And I say, and that's probably one of my pickup lines, like you said. It's I normally camp unless someone really kind invite me to their home, and then I would wink. And then he said, "Oh, but do you want to come to my home?" yes, I will. So that's always useful, or it works with a bit of humor. And the too kind, I was traveling with a German, so that's in Tajikistan, and on the beginning of the Pamir highway, which is
more about that too.
Which is a fantastic road in Central Asia. I met. They were traveling together. The German, which is the same one who I traveled with in South America later. So and he was with a French guy, and they were traveling together, and they passed me maybe a week before that. And they said, "You're the first guy we passed since Switzerland." So I take that as a compliment. It means I take a lot of good photos.
Yeah.
And so we cycled together, and then we see one guy outside of his home or shack, and then we say, "Can we stop here?" And he said, yeah, of course, like God sent you here, so I will accept it. And we start to talk, and he was living alone, so we could go inside, because if they have women inside, you cannot share the same room. So we go inside, we eat potatoes and tea, and he said, my sister is single. She lives in another town, but I think she would be really interested in marrying you, like me. And I say, why not the other two guys? Like, why me? And he said, well, the other guy, he's from Germany, so I don't want a Nazi in the family. and the other guy, the French one, the French one, yeah, last time he shaved was in France, like 8 months before. So he had a massive beard. And he said, so we're in Tajikistan, Central Asia, and he said, and this guy looks like a Taliban. So obviously, they want to marry into that also. You seemed like the perfect match. And he said, I think I had a photo somewhere. And then he's trying to find a photo. And then I'm like, it's okay, she don't spend too much time on that project. And the other guys were ecstatic. They're like, we want to see all the photos that you can get. Like, we will judge if he's marrying your sister. He doesn't have to say, but we will check that. And he calls the sister, and also she wants to speak with you. She doesn't even speak English, so she speaks Tajik or like, and I'm like, Palatka, Samaliot, Velociped, Karasho, Canada, Karasho, like everything's good from Canada. But it's more of a joke, and then it goes like that. I'm pretty sure it's a joke. I mean, we go to sleep, and then the next day, to go back on your story, like too kind, he maybe 6 a.m. the next day, he knocks on my tent, and I open it, and he has his big face, and he said, so did you think about my offer about my sister? Like, she can come here today if you want. And then to the other guys, I said, that the French and the German, I said, you guys, normally I'm super slow in the morning, but this morning, I'll pack now before the sister arrives, and you catch me later, okay? I'm not gonna wait to see if she's coming.
Did you ever see a picture?
I saw a photo, but I mean, it's irrelevant. I'm not gonna live in a shack on the Pamir Highway.
Imagine the riding you could do for the rest of your life over there.
Yeah, and I like at about 3 kilometers from Afghanistan. Cheap house, great investment.
COVID prices would have gone up.
Yeah, you don't care about electricity because anyway, it's never working. Who needs water in the house when you have a river next to you?
Fair enough. Any other questions? Yep. Go ahead, Carl.
You left alone for that trip. Was it like the plan, or did you try to enroll some people to go with you, and then they just say no, you can go, and then it was like a result of all of this to go alone? And I'm pretty sure you met a lot of people, but like, did you end up sometime feeling lonely on the road?
No, I'm never lonely because I have such a good personality that when I speak to myself, I always have something to tell. That's really interesting. But not to
I'm my own best friend.
No, but really, I wanted to go alone. I think you meet so much more people when you're alone, because they don't know which language you speak. It doesn't cost much because if they invite you, it's one person, it's not many people. And if you're really stuck, you can, let's say you're in a place your bike is broken, it's much more easy to go on a pickup truck or whatever, a train, whatever. But mainly because you meet more people. And I met a lot of people on the way, but I never really cycled with anyone apart from that German guy a few times, because I think it's more difficult to find a traveling buddy than to find a
wife in
yeah.
Tajikistan.
Well, yeah, for sure, but even a wife here, because you can, if you live in a house with another person, you can have your own space, your own time. You can have your own hobbies. When you travel on a bike with someone, you have the same, not hobbies, but you want to visit the same thing, ride at the same speed, kind of, leave at the same time, have the same budget. So many things. Want to eat or cook the same
Mhm.
things or try different things the same way, and talk to people. I like to take photos. If someone is in the mood of just travel, like go, 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 I don't want to take photos. I don't want to talk to people. It doesn't work. At few different places around the world, we said my brother joined me for a few weeks. My dad, a friend twice also, and then at some point, my girlfriend, which I met in my last year of the trip, she also joined me for a month and a half. But in every instance, it was always they would join my trip, except from that German, which I traveled
Okay.
more with. But if someone would join me from Canada, they would join my pace and my itinerary. So I would still have to adapt a bit, but they would have to adapt much more. Like it's like I'm going to your job, and then the first week I have to learn everything because they always think it will be hard physically, so they would train, and then after 3 days they're exhausted mentally. Like everything is difficult. I remember my girlfriend asked me, "Where are we going to sleep tonight?" I said, "I don't know," and she didn't like that answer. But she got used to it. But then it's part of the trip. Like it's not. She was training. She was doing spinning, so she was okay. But then we're on the side of the highway. She has no idea where we're going, and her or my brother or my dad, you have to trust the person that you're going to meet on the other side of the world. Like, yeah, we're actually going somewhere, but nobody knows where.
It's hard to. I mean, I've traveled a lot, so it's hard to fathom how difficult it is because the more you do it, the easier it gets. So when I often forget that fact that it's not easy. There's a lot to it, and it's
just
so
having
true.
a
And I've seen
haircut.
people stress about things like that, and like, oh yeah, that is worth stressing about, because
But the daily life, everything you take for granted at home, like I said, having a haircut. I have so many stories of just weird haircuts around the world.
haircut in a foreign language is the hardest thing.
Well, even with a photo, I have photos of what I want, but then they look at me and I don't have Chinese hair or like what I don't have like a Turkish beard, if that means anything. Like they have kind of a style or a texture to their hair that is different.
A certain technique that they might do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, yeah. In Turkey, you did my beard and inside my ears with like an actual real flame. So it was not a razor. It was just burning my hair on my face, which is weird.
I recently saw a video of a guy in India getting that, and I was like, whoa, that is wild.
Yeah, but you have to trust the guy or the girl because you don't know. I show my photo, and after that, I have no input or I have no clue what's happening. And when my dad, when he joined me in Vietnam, I said, "Oh, my hair is so long, I'm gonna go." She didn't have a mirror. I showed my photo on my phone. I said, "I want this." Well, I didn't say anything. I want this. And okay. And she starts. I don't know what's happening because she doesn't have a mirror. And then I start to feel the wind on the side of my head. So it's like, stop. And I look at myself with my phone, and it's basically nothing like my photo. It's just skin because that's how they
That's what she's used to.
Yeah, exactly. And I showed a photo. I cannot say anything, but my face is like, why? Well, it's not the same. And then she said, sorry. And then a face like, what do I do now? Well, do the other side the same now. I mean, and then so I'm basically half skin, half
Immediately
super
half
long.
Vietnamese.
Yeah, I like super Vietnamese haircut. I come back to the hotel and my dad is like, what happened? And I said, haircut, like it will grow back. Like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You never know.
So I was going to ask you about communication when you're going into countries
Yeah.
where people just don't speak English or French. Any other stories, or what is your, how do you get by day to day? You know,
I most of the countries I developed a technique which kind of I know 10 words, like the 10 words I bragged about in Russian. I would try to learn those words in different languages just to explain a little bit. Then I have a folder on my phone with my favorite photos, and with those, I give my phone to someone, and they can scroll, and they will understand where I've been and where I'm from. And this is my dad, so I know the papa or whatever. That's my brother, and that's Canada, and that's, you know, that's a tent. So they understand what I'm doing. And then I will also make signs. But most difficult country, you've been to China?
yeah, a couple times.
Have you tried even buying bananas, fruits? It's so complicated.
Yeah, I don't.
Have you
was
learned like the
6?
yes,
7, 8,
exactly.
9, 10.
Yeah, well, you're good. Yeah, so you have to learn that. But when, and this, like the gesture for go away, it means exactly the contrary. It means come here.
Yeah, they go like this. It's like waving forward from underhand. Like
It really looks like.
but
go
maybe
away.
like that was Malaysia, so maybe China's different. But yeah,
But yeah, okay. So but even the
where we would
simplest
go like
thing-
this, but that's how you call a dog. So they don't do it
Oh.
overhand, because that would be like calling a dog, and it'd be rude to call you like that.
Yeah. But anyway, like every day I would learn another gesture like that to learn.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
even to try, and they want to combine with the fact that they want to know exactly what you want. So I take 6 bananas, and then she waits, and then I try to show her with kind of rubbing my fingers together. Money, how much? Like that, my 2 hands together, how much? And she's just waiting for me to say the Chinese words. How much does it cost? It will never come. And at some point, that's how I learned that even the hand signs to say that the numbers are different, because it looks like they're characters.
Yeah. You know, a funny story. I actually teach all my students how to count to 10 with one hand in Chinese style,
Okay.
just for the hell of it. And then I make them do quizzes. So I make them close their eyes, and I say, okay, everybody, show me 7. And one kid says, why do we do this? I'm like, why not?
When China.
Like, what if you ever go to China?
Yeah. No, that's really useful.
Because I can. I'm the teacher.
I'd
Just do what I say.
I would have been grateful if you were my teacher.
Yeah.
No, it's so complicated, and then in the hotels, my maximum, the longest time that it took me was one night. 7 hotels refused me. I had to go from one hotel to the other in the town 7 times before one accepted me, because if they do one error in the system.
With the registration, because you're a foreigner, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then they cannot read the passport. So I had a sheet that I translated everything, but then they don't have a proof that everything is correct. And they have so many questions. Where did you enter China? Which port? Where did you get your visa? So they have to write like Ottawa in Chinese, and so many questions. And Jonathan, how do you write that in Chinese? So they would just say, whatever, go to another one. It's too complicated. I don't want the consequences of doing an error.
So you got your visa in Canada for China?
Yeah, I did. I had planned to have it in Kyrgyzstan the first time, but like a month before, the embassy was bombarded. There was a bomb there, and so they stopped the service. And so the next time, when I released the book later on, I was in Canada, and then I got the 10 years visa for China.
Because I hear a lot of people do Georgia too. Right? That's the other place where I think people get them in Georgia. Or is that for the Kazakhstan visa?
The Kazakhstan, I did it in Azerbaijan.
In Azerbaijan.
And it was complicated too. It was that's a chapter in the first book, like in Asterix, they have to go to is it the works, or they have to do 12 different things. Les travaux d'Astérix, or you say that?
Laborers.
It's not. Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah. 12
Anyway,
different people.
the Uzbek consul, I arrived there and it's totally by chance. Like you cannot know when it's open. You just have to go, then you wait. And then the guy said, oh, you got to go pay to this bank, which is on the other side of the city. So I go there and then they say, the bank changed. It's another neighborhood. So you go to another place, then you pay. They give you one paper. Have no clue if it's legit. And then you come back. Then the guy is for lunch. He's away. So yeah, I still waited. And then now I see the consulate. And he said, why don't you, oh yeah, I have my passport. Now I paid already. So it should be a formality. And he said, what's your nationality? And he has my passport. I said, Canada. He said, no, that's your country. What's your nation? France? I don't know, like 400 years ago, France. I guess my grandmother was Irish. He's like, that's not relevant. Why are you telling me this? Because in ex-Soviet, they have specific, even now, I think in the Russian passport, you can be Kazakh or Uzbek or Tajik. You can even be Jewish on the Russian passport. So
you'll say your race or religion or whatever. Right?
Yeah, and it's kind of different from your country. So now he's asking me, well, are you like Chinese? No, of course I'm not Chinese. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe he wants to say race, kind of. So I say Caucasian, and
And he's like Kafkas.
we're in the Caucasian
the Caucasus,
region. Yeah, in Caucasus. Yeah, we're in like actually right there. And he looks at me, you're not Caucasian. and then he looks at my passport and you're from Canada. Yeah, actually I'm from Canada. Sorry it took me so long to come back to my first answer. So he said, I have a question for you. What is 2T22? I say, it's a tribe in Africa. And then he laughs. And the other guy, his assistant behind the glass, laughs as well. And he said, I like you. I'm going to give you the visa. And then he gave me the answer, 2T22. It's supposed to be a word play. It's like when you order 2 cups of tea to room number 2. And I said, that's funny. So he's the assistant now. He gives me the visa, and he's showing me a magazine from 1994, and it's written 10 best reasons to visit Uzbekistan. And then he goes to one page, and there's one young girl in a traditional costume, and he said, that's number 7, but you don't need the other one when you have this. And then he gives me the visa. I go back to the hostel, and 2 German guys are there, also traveling by bike. I met them before, and they look so sad, and they told me, we went to see that Uzbek consulate guy, and he told me to come back in 1 week for our visa. He didn't want to give it to us. And I said, this visa that I have in my hand, how did you get that? What did you say when he asked you what is 2T22? We had no clue. And I said, whatever, you just need to be funny. And the guy's so bored that he's just trying, like he has the full power on everybody. And even like I was saying to him, I need the visa now because I'm cycling. And he said, everybody's cycling. Because why would you take your Uzbek visa in Azerbaijan if you're not cycling? And so he was just fooling around with the cyclists.
Yeah, just having fun.
Yeah. I don't remember what was the question.
I think we're talking about language. And,
Oh, yeah.
New places.
Oh, yeah.
How about Korea? And well, Korea's not as bad. Like I taught there in 2008, 9.
Man, you've been everywhere. You're
How many countries? 40, yeah, 44.
40 by bike.
Oh yeah, you win.
It's more like 60, but
40
who's
something
counting?
drunk. Yeah, Korea, like the youth were starting to speak a lot more English.
Yes.
It's not like Japan. Like in Korea, you can get by with English quite well if you talk to a young person.
More now. I was to Japan. I was in Japan a few months ago,
Mhm.
and I felt like it really changed
Just a
a
few
lot.
months?
Yeah, I went 4 times to Japan
Okay.
in total, and that was the 4th time, but the first time in the winter.
Mhm.
And it changed. I think it changed a lot.
Oh, good. I'm
And
looking forward to that.
even in the last maybe 8 years.
Mhm.
Used to be only in Tokyo. I think that it was more in English, but now even if you go to smaller towns, it's you can speak more English.
They're starting to learn bits and bobs. You know?
Yeah.
A few bits.
But in the train, like it used to be only in Japanese,
Yeah.
and now they would say even in a rural train, like next stop is something. No.
Okay.
So you're less lost.
Nice. Carl's going to Japan soon, so I'm sure he wants to hear more about Japan.
Amazing.
Tell us about Japan.
It's the cultural Galapagos.
Go on.
It's the Galapagos Island.
Yeah.
They have a flora fauna completely unique in the world, and in Japan they're like everyone else but 10 times more. So the 10 times, but in a good way, or like in both ways, good and bad, because you always have both sides.
Mhm.
But they have something, a lot of things extremely unique, like sumo wrestling, or their food. Their food is the perfection is everywhere in every aspect.
Yeah.
And it has consequences that are bad, because it's good because they push themselves really hard, and then everything is extremely clean. You're in a massive metropolis, but it feels like you're in a village because it's so quiet. Everything runs
Mhm.
like they're all little ants. But because they're living for the collectivity instead of one person, they're kind of repressed, I think, as one person. And there's a lot of suicides.
That self-identity is lost in that sense.
Yes, like it's good to sleep in the train or in public transport, because it shows that you work so hard that you cannot even stand up to go back in your apartment. There's a word in Japanese. I don't remember the exact word, but it means a woman that works so hard she doesn't have the time to iron her blouse, so she has to wear a knitted sweatshirt.
There's a word for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it.
And then there's the word karoshi, which means you work so hard that you kill yourself at work.
Mhm.
Not physically, not on purpose. Just you're so exhausted, you collapse.
Yeah, and it
And-
happens, I think. Like people actually die working.
Yeah, and then I cycled through the forest of suicide.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah, I didn't even know, but I was researching after, and I learned that it was exactly that spot. And it's where people go to kill themselves because they don't want to bother anyone with that.
Yeah, be found. Or it's,
Yeah, exactly. And also it's on the side of Mount Fuji, and then with the volcanic rocks and the vegetation, it's really dense, so it will absorb the noise, so you don't disturb anyone with that. I love Japan.
Yeah, you've been there 4 times, huh?
Yeah. I climbed Mount Fuji. I have a friend who's been living in Japan for most of his life. He went there right after he graduated from university. He's married with a Japanese woman. He has kids there, and I think he's probably more Japanese than Japanese people, because he wants to be
Yeah,
Japanese. And so whenever I go, he always wants to do like typical Japanese things, like climb Mount Fuji, or go see a sumo tournament, but not like one of the 6, but the last day. It lasts for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the last day of the sumo, because that's where they will give the price. What else? We went to in the Buddhist monastery where you have the traditional food, and then you have the prayers and all of that. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
interesting.
you cycled Shimanami Kaido.
Yes,
Isn't
I
it
did.
amazing?
It's the Shimanami Kaido is the most beautiful cycling path in the world, I think. That
It
I've
must
done.
be up there. I cycled from Osaka to Hiroshima, so.
So you saw it, but you didn't cross.
Oh no, I cycled it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I cycled all the bridges and stuff. But
Yeah.
I crossed the whole island. Yeah, I took a ferry from Wakayama across the bay,
Okay.
or whatever you want to call it, the body of water,
It's the Seto
strait or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then-
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's so you go from one island to the other. I think it's 6 or 7 bridges,
7, I think.
and yeah, I think it's 6 tiny islands between the two. So Honshu at the north and Shikoku at the south, and you go. They all look different, but a bit like Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, and what I thought
Kind of.
was really awesome was they had their own cycle lanes, and sometimes they
Yes.
had their own on ramps.
Corkscrew
So you were
ramp.
like on a corkscrew on ramp.
Yeah.
There's no vehicles because it's an on ramp that's 2 meters wide and or maybe a little bit more.
It's only 80 kilometers, and I thought, oh, it's easy. I'll do it in one day. And then again, I'm like, why?
Mhm.
Why? So I slept on one of the island.
Yeah, I found a couch surfer on one of the islands, and I
Oh, yeah?
couch surfed. Yeah,
That's cool. I just camped next to a coffee shop.
it's probably awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, the couch surfer was pretty cool. We went up and like just took me around to some different viewpoints and cool places. Yeah, very nice.
But the rest of Japan is not that great to cycle there. I feel because it's too much mountain, the topography of it. So if you go inside the island, it's really long. It's a long detour to come back. And if you stay on the coast, especially on Honshu, the main island, and especially once you arrive a few hundred kilometers from Tokyo, it's I don't even know if it's a word in English, but in French it's a conurbation. With conurbation, I guess maybe it's the same thing, but it's when a city is so big that it will enter in another city. So it's never even
Okay.
a suburb.
Yeah.
It's just like you have Yokohama, Kawasaki, Tokyo, Shiba.
They're all
and,
one big city now.
and
yeah.
then it's just like it's even bigger than the megalopolis. Like it's just Tokyo. It has 43 with all those cities around. It's like 43 million people in one kind of giant city.
It's more than Canada's population.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
nuts.
In a radius of maybe 150 kilometers. No, not even that would be the diameter actually.
Mhm.
So only 80-kilometer radius.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, I think if you're interested in going off road though and up in the mountains, I think
Yes.
Japan could be great.
Yeah.
I know when I was in, I did a couple of really cool adventures. One near Wakayama, I went to there's a famous monastery up in the mountains, and I did a jogging adventure. So I kind of just ran all day and pretty awesome. Like just really empty, because maybe people weren't jogging up there taking the tram.
They have more bikepack now in
Like
Japan.
packing routes.
Yeah, but bikepacking crowd is
Mm.
becoming. And I said I don't know 10 minutes ago about the Japanese people are all like living together, but bikepack in Japan, from what I saw, is a way to differentiate yourself because they bring frames and parts from Europe, mainly from US. So it's totally different.
Mhm.
It doesn't look like a mamachari, like the old, or not old, but the cargo bike
Mommy
that
style, yeah.
that
Family
everybody
bikes.
rides. You have a unique construction, and they do bikepacking trip. It's still not that popular, but I think it's growing.
Mhm.
And they have a race around.
They have
Nagano.
one, yeah, I know
Is
they
it?
have.
Is it? or like the Nagano or something race?
I don't know.
or,
I know I saw a thing about a long distance, ultra distance type
Yeah.
bike packing race, but I don't remember the details. So what else? What else can we talk about? Tell some more stories. Because I like this whole thing was like in an order that is not relevant.
We didn't. No.
But that's okay. I like this.
You want to name one country?
Netherlands.
Netherlands. I've never been. Oh no, it's not true. I've been, but no, I haven't cycled
Cycle
there. It's
there,
not-
which is the thing to do. It's so flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The thing is in Europe.
Oh, you didn't tell us about the premiere. So
Oh yeah, the Pamir. Yeah. I didn't know about the Pamir.
You didn't know about it.
No, I didn't. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I left from Europe, and I was going east. And actually, I think I wanted to go to Kyrgyzstan, but I didn't know anything about Tajikistan. And I thought I would go probably through the Fergana Valley, which is northeast of Uzbekistan, but also a bit in the surrounding countries. And then I met two Korean guys. They were coming from Korea, so I crossed path with them. And they said, are you going to the Pamir? I think I was going in that region, Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan at the time, and going close to it. And they said, we just finished the Pamir. They looked destroyed. And they said, it's so high in altitude. You're going to be on a plateau between 4,000 and 5,000 meters for weeks on end. No vegetation. There's nothing. Like nobody lives there almost. You need a special visa to get to that autonomous
You
region.
get it like Coruscant or something, or what's it?
It's
I forget.
Yeah.
Not Coruscant.
And then I'm just thinking about it. And then it sounds like Kazakhstan, but I'm confusing with the east of Azerbaijan. Anyway, is it Nagorno something, or that's in Azerbaijan?
No, that's in Azerbaijan.
Ah, damn. Okay, so anyway, going east, I met those Korean guys. They say 4,000, 5,000 meters, it's a plateau, and then nobody lives there, or a few people, so you have a village every 2 or 3 days, maybe a lot of wind, it's really cold. To get on the plateau, you have to climb for days. The road is destroyed. And then on the other end of it, there's a border going to China, and so they only open the border for once a week, I think. So all the trucks are going in one go.
Oh, wow.
And so you're alone for 6 days, and then one day you're passed by 200 trucks on those roads that are hard to pedal on a bike.
So a really good tip there, though, is if you're riding up there and all of a sudden you start seeing all these trucks, is just get off the road and camp for a day, right? And then
Yeah,
by
because
the next day they'll be gone. And
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll get out of all the dust.
Mhm.
But then when they told me that, I'm like, guys, you had me at just when I saw your face, I was convinced. Like, you didn't have to tell me all of that. I was already convinced for a long time ago, and so I decided to go there, and it was.
Well, and you're on a touring bike that's heavy. That's also to be considered, right? Like, because
But it's not that. The first bit is difficult.
Okay.
Because it climbs a lot. But once you're on the plateau, it's similar to the Altiplano actually in South America and Bolivia. You're super high, but you're always at that altitude. And if you compare it to like Kyrgyzstan, where it's completely different, Kyrgyzstan they're valleys. So you go to 3,500, then you go down to 1,000 or 800, and you go up, and then you go down. And the Pamir, once you're on top, you just follow that for a long time, and you have 6 passes, but they're not that difficult.
Okay.
Because you climb 400 meters for that pass, and it's a bit hard because of the wind and
the
because
thin air probably.
Yes, but then again, some days are good, some days are bad, and you can be fit and have problems in altitude, or vice versa. You never know. I think I'm better when I'm in altitude compared to the other cyclists.
Okay.
Because I'm always the same. So when they start to be kind of sick, I'm still normal,
Mm.
and I look good in altitude.
Cool.
Yeah.
And,
But Pamir and Carretera Austral, those are my two greatest roads or like itineraries that I would suggest.
oh yeah.
If you want to feel like you're on another planet.
Any other questions?
What about Canada?
Yeah, that's.
I've
I
never
was wondering
crossed
as well.
Canada. It's too. Maybe I'll do it one day, but I think it's the same reason why I've never been to Australia, because it's really big. Well, Australia is a massive desert also, that's why it's even worse. But it's kind of the same culture. So I don't travel to have, like I said, that amount of kilometers or countries. It's to meet people and learn about another culture. So Canada, I don't think I would prefer to just do loops in the Rockies, really, instead of crossing the whole thing for 3 months, or in my case, like 5 months.
Or 2 weeks or whatever.
Well, I know some people are doing it super quickly. Yeah.
We got a question back there.
Yeah, I'm wondering how did like traveling change your perception on Canada and Quebec? Did it change at all, or?
How traveling changed your perception?
But it changed the way I hear myself. In Canada, we always think we have to choose between French and English, and we always live in that duality. And also because English, it's the language that we speak all over the world. It's like the lingua franca, the common language that we use. But here, it's also the language of how the French lost against the English. So we have this, and so if we want to speak in English, it's like, do I abandon my French? And I don't think that. I mean, if a Norwegian speaks in English, I don't think he abandons the Norwegian language.
Yeah.
It's just to be understood by more people. So
Yeah, Canada's history is a little different. So it's
yeah. So there's that. We're super lucky, but I knew that before. But we're so lucky with the visa, with the passport. We can go anywhere in the world. They see our passport. It's never like, oh, are you a terrorist? Like it's so easy, and especially by bike. You arrive to a border. One time he said, I was entering Turkey, and the guy said, oh, whoa, not so quick. I gotta search you. And then he proceeded to kick one of my pannier. And he said, yeah, it's okay. You can go. Some guys from tiny countries. A guy, I don't remember. I think I met a guy from Liechtenstein. It was a tiny country like that. And he told me that, I told him, man, so cool to come from a super, super tiny country that nobody knows or nobody knows anything about it. And he said, it's such a pain. Every time I go to another country, I show my passport and they think it's fake. It doesn't exist. What is that? They would show me your real passport, you noob. And he's like, I have to prove, like I have to show a map. It's here. Are you sure it's and then they call the other people. The guy's telling me he's from Liechtenstein. So it's also good that they know that Canada exists. And Canada, it's the same in every country, every language.
Yeah.
It's not like Alemania, Germania, Germany, or even
Italian.
Yeah, that or I don't know what else, but
Canada's
it's
Canada.
this
Yeah.
it's always written the same thing. I don't know if that's a big plus, but that's
Everybody knows it.
When I was started traveling in 2016, it was the beginning of the Trudeau era, and that surprised me. Everybody loved Trudeau. They loved him. Like he was more popular than Obama. And in Azerbaijan, young girls in Baku, they were telling me like, "Oh man, you're so lucky you have Trudeau, like you're prime minister, and because they have a dictator with his face is all over the country, so they're like, at least if it was Trudeau, it would be nice to look at. and it was funny that in every country, but then 2 years later, nobody was talking about him anymore.
Oh, yeah. I think people still do. I don't know. I know I've been all over, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you guys have Trudeau," and I'm like,
No, now they're
'Cause
like,
they
oh,
just-
you have Poiliev, man. He's such a stud, man. That Poiliev.
"Is that
guy."
him now? Is that
No,
the
no,
new
no.
Trudeau?" Yeah, he had a pretty cool picture of it, like somebody had painted a mural somewhere, right? And when
Trudeau
he
or
walked-
Poiliev?
Trudeau.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere. I forget what country you're in, but there was like a painted mural of.
Oh, he was known. Yeah, he was loved. It was crazy.
I remember when I lived in Russia, there was I'd walk down the road and you'd always see the hooligans, the shaved heads, and they'd see you and you're totally like, you could tell a mile off you're a foreigner, and they'd be like, "Fuck USA," and you're like, "No, I'm Canadian. We love Canada."
Yeah.
But then a few years later, Obama got elected, and they're like, "We love USA," and you're like, "Whoa, what happened?" It was weird.
Yeah. But
And it's funny because they're all like skinhead racist guys who are yelling out, "We love Obama," and I'm like,
the German friend I told you about, he had that in Iran. They were like they were like that with the Hitler sign.
"No,
Yeah, because the not Nazi but the Aryan race,
mm-hmm.
they say in Iran that they're descendant from that same thing.
I don't know about that."
Yeah, so they said, yeah, you guys, you abandoned the project. And he's like, no, you didn't have the memo. It's not cool anymore.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How long is this?
We can end anytime.
You
Okay.
don't have to take my question.
Go ahead.
I'm a photographer, so I'd love to know about the
Oh, yeah.
logistics
Yes,
of photography and maybe story.
said the guy with like a lens that is
It's
the
too
same
heavy-
weight as my bike.
too heavy to be on the bike.
Yeah, but so I had a bunch of stuff at the beginning. Only one kind of tiny camera because it was a mirrorless, so the body is smaller than. Well, now you don't even have DSLR anymore, but it used to be more popular. And I had 3 different lenses. I think maybe 2 would have been enough, but I had a 10 to 24, 18 to 55, and 55 to 200. And the largest one, like the telephoto, is really interesting to take photos of people because they don't know you're taking them in a photo. But also I would use it half the time for landscape because you don't go just further, you compress the landscape. And when you're cycling and you have mountains behind, it looks like the mountains are 500 meters behind you instead of 30 kilometers. So I use that lens a lot. And after that, I got the drone. And drone, I'm always surprised. I always think I will shoot this. And then finally, it's always something else that you don't see. It used to be a lot easier. I traveled a year also last year, and it was way, way, way harder. A few years ago, the drones were
They weren't
they were
regulated as such, right?
yeah, the police would look at the phone and they'd be like, "Oh, amazing! I take a photo of the police station." And now it's so difficult because people are using it. They're bigger, they're larger, they're larger, but also smaller. Like you can do everything with it. And people are passing drugs or they're taking photos of military camps all over. So it's a lot harder, I think, today. Tripod, and then the trick. Every time I do conferences, I have to explain the concept of a tripod because if I don't, I talk to them for an hour, and after that they say, "Okay, cool, but you were alone, but also who is taking all your photos? When you're in your photo, who's taking the photo?" So I explain. You put the tripod, you put interval like every 3 seconds or 5 seconds. Then I pedal extremely slow to be in focus. I have a manual focus that I put probably on my bike, on the road, or on something on the pavement. And then I have my focus and I try to pedal one direction and then coming back. And then I take maybe 38 photos and there's one or two that are good.
Ah.
And then I have to select them and zoom super big to see which one is more in focus. The drone, you can do the same thing. You just put it in place and then shoot interval photos. Sometimes I think it's easier to take a video and sometimes it's easier to take a photo, because video, you don't need to nail your focus as much, but then you want some movement, so you cannot move it. But then the drone, now I have something on my gravel bike that I ordered that on AliExpress. I can have my controller directly on the handlebar.
Ah.
So you don't really control it because it's sensitive. So if you have anything on the road that you're moving way, but at least I don't have to leave my controller on the pavement and then come back to pick it up. Yeah. I have one photo in the second book that I'm in the ditch with my bike, and it's a drone photo because I was, again, taking photos one every 5 seconds. And I started to ride, but I was uphill and just pedaling with one hand and my controller in the other hand. And so I fell in the ditch, and I decided to keep that photo to show like a bit how it's done kind of behind the scene. Because when you do a long trip, you pedal a lot, but most of the time is just the regular thing. Like how to take a photo, like you ask, or what do you eat, or the difficulty of the daily life. Yeah.
Awesome.
What about battery life when traveling and those?
Battery, it's not as complicated as we think it is. I had a dynamo, like Carl here, probably the same, like light, front light, back light, dynamo, USB thing. And then I would cycle 12 kilometers an hour and realize like I cannot charge anything at my speed. That thing is almost useless. It takes and when you plug your phone, it's kind of pushing electricity inside your phone. But when you pedal, it will charge really quick at the beginning because your phone is at 10%. So it's kind of drinking the electricity. But then the 80 to 100%, it's almost flat.
Yeah.
Because I'm not fast enough to give it enough power. So I think now, and also my dynamo hub, it broke twice. It didn't really break, but it got loose, and you need to send it to Taiwan, this specific model, to have it repaired. So it's not that useful. And I think now just bring a bigger battery pack and it will be okay. Unless you really have to be outside of the civilization for a week to need the dynamo. Because even if you have electricity, if you have some place with electricity every 2 or 3 days, it's enough. I would stop in whatever restaurant or market and I'd be like, do you need your freezer? Right now, I'd like to plug everything that I have. And then I would plug they're like, yeah, okay. And then I have, like drone, computer, camera, another camera. I had 7 things plugged, and then I'd be like, thank you. I'll take this one, Mr. Freeze.
Before it thaws out.
Yeah.
Before it thaws out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would take it at the beginning or at the end, just to make sure.
Awesome. Any other questions? No? All right, Jonathan, thanks for being on the podcast and
thank you very much.
All that randomized story.
Yeah. Did we follow your schedule?
It must have been one heck of a trip. That was minding. No.
Yeah. Did you have good weather?
Did you have good weather? No, that's good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. It's all good. Thanks so much. All right. I will sign off and keep on pedaling.